This is working without being connected to really anything but a regular plug. All right. Welcome, Kitchen Daughters. This is Angelo, your steam oven guru. Now, this is probably the first time that you have seen my face like this because my other videos about appliance tutorials and how-to videos typically start from kind of this line downwards. And by all means, if you're here to learn about how to use your ovens or how to properly clean your fancy built-in coffee machine, by all means, check those videos out first and then come back to this one. Starting from this video, I will be kind of crisscrossing between a few different topics. We'll still do those tutorial videos as well, but I'll be also including some more appliance talk videos. Really just to spark some interest and maybe share some more factors about our industry that I find interesting. And over the last few years, I've been in this industry through the whole fun and chaos about the home appliance business. And really, there are things that is probably common in almost all the different industries. Things like some levels of zero-sum competition, things like easily manipulated online information, and probably not 100% genuine online advertisement. Things like planned obsolescence, things like material wastage. And really, I want to discuss at least some topics that tend to impact the consumers or even the environment as a whole. So yeah, hopefully we'll get some topics started and perhaps spark some positive movements in the right direction. To start things off, today we're going to be talking about this thing right here. I'm actually testing this in my basement right now where I'm doing my videos, and this is a ventless laundry system. This is a heat pump laundry system. Today's video will be about 4 parts: what this thing is, what makes it so great, and what makes it not that great. And lastly is going to be where I totally nerd out and have some more meta or bigger picture talks about what this thing can do in the longer scheme of things. And so to start things off, this is a heat pump ventless dryer system. Oh yeah, those are the condenser dryers, right? I heard they don't work that well. You are kind of correct, random t-shirt guy. So yes, there are 2 kinds of ventless laundry systems, and I normally get questions about them pretty much all the time. So the first type is called a condenser type ventless laundry system, and they are kind of on their way out already because mainly they don't work that well. Basically, they do have a lot of moisture return when they're working. So if you're going to be in a smaller space like this, a lot of the moisture from the drying cycle is not going to be drained away, and they will basically be pushed back into the room because there's no vent. I won't go into detail for those that much, but for this type of a heat pump ventless laundry system, it almost works like the reverse of a refrigerator. So normally our refrigerators are cold on the inside and then it's hot on the outside, hot on the back. That's why we always ask people to leave some space for ventilating the fridges, otherwise they will overheat. So turn that in reverse. Basically, the heat pump laundry systems, they generate the heat on the inside of the drum, and then that heat, along with the air that is now heated, will push the moisture out of the clothing, and then that becomes a kind of a steamy hot air. And that steamy hot air then travels to a chamber in the back of the machine where it cools instantly. So when you get hot steamy air and instant chill, what you get is going to be 2 things. You get liquid clean water, which is then drained away. In my case, because I'm testing this in the middle of the room, it's going to be pumped into this water reservoir right here. Like this, there's still a little bit of water inside it, and but normally it just gets plugged into the washing machine's drain. And the other thing you get is going to be just dry, cool, clean air. And guess what? That dry air that is now clean and cool will then be recirculated back into the drum again to begin the whole heat up process. And that gets circled again and again until your clothing is completely dry. And basically, in comparison, we have heard a lot of really scary stories about those condenser dryers taking about 3 hours to dry, turning the home into a messy, steamy sauna of some sort, and still leaving the clothes somewhat damp. It will not happen in this case at all. Normally what you get is going to be completely dry clothing, and it does take about an hour. I've been testing a few different loads now, but for a regular full load, it's between 50 minutes to about an hour to dry, and it will dry the clothing completely, which is great. The only thing that it will take longer time to dry is going to be those larger sheets of bed sheets or a big clump of towels. I was just doing a load of bath towels like these earlier yesterday, and I did a total of 9 towels and a small face towel, and all 9 and plus that small face towel was completely dry and fluffy within about an hour and 50 minutes. So that's how kind of the heat pump laundry works. What they do is that, of course, they will be able to be installed into almost any situation, which brings us to what makes this thing so great, because all in all, it's just a dryer, right? Well, yes and no. So first of all, this machine is going to be built quite differently based on how it is designed, so that brands who can manufacture a effective heat pump laundry system typically are going to be the more technologically advanced companies. These machines are going to be incredibly energy efficient, and they do make installation a lot easier because of the not having to worry about where the duct is, and overall they just basically work as a potentially better way of doing laundry as a whole. So we'll go through those one by one. First is going to be the manufacturing process. Traditionally, the dryer systems are typically a heating coil that you just send electricity through, which is just like, say, your stove top that heats up kind of thing. So it's really basic technology. In order to have a reverse refrigerator type situation put into a dryer system, brands will have to be more careful at the manufacturing process. Even the transportation and final install would be a bit more sophisticated. So typically the brands who can perfect or at least do a good job at manufacturing and selling a heat pump laundry system are going to be the brands that would typically perform better in the marketplace. For example, this one I'm testing right now is designed to last about 20 years of life. And personally, I've been doing a few thousand cycles testing this, and they just work quite flawlessly. So that's first. It does typically call for a more sophisticated manufacturing process. Something about planned obsolescence. The general large data study suggests that typically in at least the North American society here, families and people tend to move between 7 to 10 years, give or take these days, especially for younger families. And many machines are designed to only last between 5 and 10 years, which is really quite sad. Because really you're supposed to get a home appliance that should last a lifetime at least, at least its regular life cycle, which many brands aren't doing anymore. Some brands will at least still push to have that equivalent of 20 years of use, which is still more reliable than most. These brands would probably cost more money, but they do make your money in the long term, and we'll get into that in the second part where this thing becomes so much more energy efficient and money saving. So how this machine kind of helps to save money is that because the way this technology works differently from the regular vented or ducted dryer systems, they do save running costs in a few ways. This is going to be useful for, I guess, each individual in terms of decision making. So first of all, the way that this works is going to be so much lesser in terms of electricity. So on average, a heat pump dryer system would use about only a quarter of the energy compared to a large size vented dryer. And once you take into consideration the difference in volume and all that, generally the amount of energy used on a heat pump system would be between 30 and 40% compared to a regular laundry system. And aside from that, basically what will also help save the money as well, this is going to be a part of a invisible cost. So by not having to have a duct in the laundry area, you don't have to hire a company or even just yourself to do the laundry duct cleaning every year. Those typically will cost you between $70 to about $150 per visit, and that is going to be some kind of a long-term savings, because the more years you use these kind of machines, the longer you can go without cleaning your ducts. You can even seal those ducts up altogether, and that brings it to the heavier part of the cost savings. And this surely is going to be invisible, because this is going to be the cost savings in air. What most people don't realize is that while your laundry dryer is running, for the regular type of the vented laundry, all that hot air that is being blasted through the dryer's drum is then blasted through the duct. So what happens is most of those motors are actually a 150 cubic feet per minute motor. And over the course of 45 minutes to an hour of drying time, you're blasting away a tremendous amount of air. And all that air that leaves your building envelope would then need to be replaced by outside air, and we call them makeup air. And the energy it takes to either correct, so either heat up or cool down those makeup air to be comfortable for your home enjoyment, that takes energy. And basically, I was running some data calculations with our local BC Hydro, that's our hydro company's data, is that for a regular detached home, every year by running this type of laundry, based on roughly 4 to 5 loads of laundry a week for a regular family kind of thing, you're saving between $500 and $700 of heating energy just alone in itself. Adding that to the energy savings, to the labor savings, and to the potential reduction in fire hazard and insurance costs, they add up to anywhere between $600 to $800 a year in terms of savings in your day-to-day invisible running costs. And for a condo or a, say, townhouse like I'm in right now, basically that cost become a bit lower, but still you're having a saving ranging between about $300 to about $500 a year in energy and other savings as well. So that's where this machine itself is such a great cost saver months to months. So if you're saving, say, $700 a year in terms of the running cost of the machine, most machines can make their cost back in about 3 years' time, which is awesome, because the machine actually kind of helps your household to save money in the long run. Aside from the cost-saving greatness about this machine, there are going to be a few positive benefits as well, where first of all, because there's no more duct required, it does make it easier to be located or relocated in the home. So whether for convenience or for comfort or even just for accessibility issues, this machine can be installed almost anywhere where there's adequate power. This particular model that I'm testing right now, well, I bought it, but I'm just testing to see how it works and everything, is that this only runs on a regular wall plug. So you don't even need the big high voltage plug anymore, which is quite great. So that makes things a lot easier for you to either have a more easily reachable laundry system, so you don't have to, say, run downstairs every time you have to use the laundry room, or it just makes things a lot faster to get at. So if you want to, say, fluff up your towels, or maybe just kind of get the wrinkles out of your shirts quickly before going to work or something, this makes things a lot easier in terms of install and utility. After being able to locate this anywhere, because there's no duct, you also get a benefit of not having the noise that is normally associated with the ducts. There's going to be about 2 sources of noise that comes from washing laundry. One part is going to be about the washing machines. We can go that in a different video, but basically for the more well-built washing machines, you normally hear a light gush of water during the regular running cycles, and you will hear a faster spin towards the end where it's spinning and draining. But most of the noise comes from the drying cycle because it's consistently going, right? So if you have a regular ducted dryer, you hear that kind of the gushing of the hot air outside all the time because you have a lot of hot, steamy air that is trying to fit through a duct about roughly this big. And when you get hot air going through a small opening, you get pretty much a whistle effect. I can't whistle. But basically, that means that for the entire running time of, say, 45 minutes to about an hour for the drying cycle, you hear that gush of air all the time. So by not having a vent that goes outside, and because the air kind of recirculates inside the machine, you reduce that noise by about 60%. So this becomes a much lower noise level machine. If you are going to be in a tighter space or in a smaller space, or if your laundry room is located near your bedroom or your main living area, this will be a lot better in terms of not having a heavy noise level to kind of disturb your day-to-day life. And if we're looking at, say, heavier density projects, we will go through this more towards the end of the video, but just a real quick thing is that if a condo building, say roughly 100 units, compares itself with two situations, one with ducted laundry, one with ductless laundry, the amount of hot air and wasted hot air and energy that leaves the building equals roughly 30% of the building's heating cost, which is huge. And also, when you get all those ducts that leads to the outside, there's all that tiny fluffs that kind of floats around, and well, we are putting hot air into the environment, which of course doesn't help in terms of the whole global warming idea, because rather than putting in those greenhouse gases and all that into the atmosphere, by running a ducted laundry, we are actually putting hot air into the environment. But we'll go to that later to the end of the video as well, just to talk about it in more detail. So let's talk about what this machine does have a little bit of in terms of downsides to it. So because nothing is perfect, right? So first thing first, this is a small machine. So if you look at a regular set of laundry system versus a compact European style non-ducted laundry, these machines would lose about 25% capacity, which means over a course of a year or so, you have to do about 25% more loads of laundry. So it does add, maybe if you do normally 4 loads of laundry a week, now you're doing 5 or sometimes even 6 loads of laundry a week, which is sometimes of course cumbersome. And secondly, these machines will be more costly, and that will be a major factor because, like I mentioned earlier, the brands who manufactures these type of technologies would be the brands that are more experienced in the marketplace and that has a better name behind them. And as this machine takes more technology and components to manufacture, they do cost more money. And at least for myself and many that I know, we don't plan for our monthly budgets for things to go wrong, right? So when suddenly your existing laundry machine stops working, many people, myself included, don't have that extra $1,000 or extra $2,000 to throw into a set of laundry system that is much more expensive than the other technologies out there. And really it's quite unfortunate because this machine do save you a tremendous amount of cost in the long run, but sometimes the initial investment is just too high for many people to handle. And really I wish that there are either programs in place or some kind of a reimbursement strategies from either the government or the hydro companies for the larger picture of things. Hopefully that day will come and we can all benefit from that and make the world a better place from using smarter technology. Thirdly, the limitation about this heat pump laundry system really is in its being new, because really, for example, some brands will make their machines to last about 20 years, and guess what? This technology has not even been around for 20 years yet. It was invented in Europe about 15 years ago. It's only been in North America for about, say, 4 years, and I started testing this machine and playing with it about 4 or 5 years ago. So there is going to be a situation where by the time that these machines finally reach their life cycle, because there is that small refrigerator type technology inside it with different chemicals and gases as coolants, there is just no data or even practices out there to deal with them yet. Now, by the time, say in 5 years more in Europe, then we probably will begin to see some of these machines finally rolling away from their first generations. Then we will have a lot better understanding as to how to properly dispose of them, or what is the process of properly taking care of them after they have finished their life cycle. But yeah, I mean, just being brand new and really not that popular yet is their shortfall. And I'm having a lot of conversations with clients, with different stratas and different property management companies about this right now is because this is not common knowledge. And hopefully this video will help to make that situation a bit better, because people don't know what it is. People have a lot of pushbacks because of the previously mentioned condensation dryer systems. People don't know how to properly care for these machines because it is not popular, right? So all these curveballs we'll have to deal with eventually as this machine becomes more popular, hopefully, and become a more everyday topic that people know about and rely upon for their quality, for their benefits, and and easy to use and no noise and all that kind of stuff. And all right, so this is where I totally nerd out about this and talk about larger picture things. And this will be mostly dedicated to a lot of the larger scale, say, builders and developers, or managers and property management companies, or just large scale strata councils, because I do have these conversations almost every other day with professionals in this area about these, because once again, this technology is not that well known yet. So a few things. First of all, it's going to be back to that energy efficiency factor. I was talking about how these as being more efficient, but how efficient? Here's the thing. Your regular full-size laundry system in a regular situation would normally call for a 240 or 208 voltage high voltage power. That is kind of the standard for North America here. I believe the European standard is going to be 220 volts, give or take. And you need a proper flow of 30 amps. That 30 amps normally go for 15 towards your washing machine and 15 towards your dryer at that high voltage. And when that happens, this machine is so different is that it will take about 3 amps. And that's, well, a complete category now, because this machine will save almost 70 to 80% of the power while it's running compared to the regular laundry system. And in a lot of situations where I'm working with, say, older condos for renovations or for townhomes, that is, say, either trying to add a new part of the kitchen or perhaps even add a electric vehicle charging station. Of course, I haven't done studies in that area yet, so we have to probably explore that area further. But this will free up 10, even up to 20 amps of power when combined with the proper washing machine to give you more flexibility in your building project to use them for other things. The limitation is that this machine still calls for a nominal 15 amp connection on the wall from the building code side of things. So perhaps as time goes along, as these technology is more well recognized, either the law-making agencies and all that can realize this do not need that 15 amps, needs about 3, maybe 4 max for that situation. This will be a lot more flexible in those applications. When going into larger scale pictures, this is where, say, if you have a older condo building, I've been talking to a lot of condos locally that are between 25 and 35 years old. They normally have a really old ventilation system, either not up to code, or in some cases, the ventilation ducts for the dryers would actually be combined with the ventilation ducts with the cooking area. So you end up with, like, when you're drying your clothing, there's a bit of a stir-fry smell in there because your neighbor is doing some kind of a cooking, which is quite ridiculous. So this is where if a building, of course not all at once, but really as time goes, as residents need to replace things, can consider going into these type of technology. That's when, once the building is more than 80% or even 100% all ventless for laundry, then your building is so much more energy efficient. You save about 30% of your heating cost. You will save all of your duct cleaning costs for the laundry ducts, because now those are all sealed. And overall, your building's noise level becomes much lower because there is no more hot air going through all those metal ducts overhead. And this really is going to be a big cost saver for your building's running costs too, because then a lot of the maintenance costs can be reduced, or your building's contingency fund can grow. And by having no ducts to clean and no fluff to end up in the duct network, your building's fire hazard rating also reduces significantly. So this is where once a commitment is made in a strata as a whole, there are a lot of larger picture things that people can aim towards to make this building a better running building. One thing about fluff too, I'm not sure if anybody knows this, but well, now you do. If you look at your dryer, whether it's whatever type you have, it's really easy to look at the, oh sorry, I still have stuff in there. I'm sorry about that. One thing is about these lint filters. So if you see these ones, you don't really even see through them because the opening or the mesh is so fine on there. Because these type, they will capture pretty much all the lint from the drying cycle. And there are brands who make these things that have almost like a fishnet opening on them that you can see through easily with those big openings. That's because the brands that has those big opening filters want the smaller fabrics to flow through those and away, because they don't want the user to see how much they're destroying the garments. A lot of the drying cycles overheat the garments, and then the fabrics of the clothing will be ripped off, and that's what lints are. That's basically destroyed clothing, right? And those will basically go through those fishnet openings and then into your ducts. That's why there's a lot of lint buildup in your ducts. These machines, there is no vent, and because they operate better and softer and more gently on how they deal with clothing, you end up with a fine layer of lint here, which is very protective of your laundry. And also, there is no duct for these to go into anymore, so that it is going to be a significant reduction in any kind of a fire hazard in that case. Putting this back now. And let's continue on the topic of not having ducts. So this is going to be more for builders and developers. And I really don't know if this is becoming more popular or not. I mean, at least for my line of work, this is becoming so much more popular because personally, I've been even working on projects where the entire building is aimed to go into what's called a passive home status, where the huge building envelope becomes so much more energy efficient. It costs almost no energy to run. But that's going to be a separate topic. We can probably explore that in the future as well. But for builders and developers, I'm sure you already are familiar with the cost savings of not having to run a duct, not having to run hard wires for the booster fans to go into the ducts, because you need those for a larger building, if you have duct, of course. And not having booster fans. These are all going to be cost saving factors for the construction process. But a few more things do come into play here. Because if you were to use a ductless laundry system like this, your building design is going to be so much easier for layout, because now you can even play around with where you want your laundry room to be in your units. It can be even put into a kitchen for smaller spaces because it doesn't require a ventilation and it doesn't have any feedback because all the air is self-circulated. And things like the brands, once again, that are better brands that typically will be more well received by consumers. Once you put them into the spaces that you have, this becomes a lot more easier to attract potential buyers because people like better brands. They want nice stuff in their homes. You know, who doesn't want those kind of things, right? And the brands will be longer lasting, and your buildings, once again, becomes easier to run and less expensive to run because there's going to be lower running costs, lower heating costs, lower maintenance costs, lower fire hazard insurance, that all reflect upon either the monthly maintenance fees or reflect upon the lower energy bills for your potential buyers and future residents. At least for me and myself and my family, we've been in Vancouver for about 20 years now, and we've always been an active searcher and seeker of living spaces because this city is kind of expensive to live in now. I'm not sure if any developers is doing kind of a marketing strategies towards those, but if you have means to actually reduce your monthly spending by a large portion, that does, I mean, at least to me, play into a benefiting factor for making a decision about living spaces. Because if you add upon the whole monthly cost about mortgages, cars, insurance, you know, kids and school and you know, food and just groceries and the running costs of the house and everything else, those bills add up. And if what you're offering out there for developers that has a monthly spending savings that can be easily calculated, then that is your winning card, right? At least, helps you to sell your projects faster to move on to the next project afterwards, right? So there's my 1-2 bit about that. Sorry, Vancouver is just super expensive to live in, so that's kind of my thing. That pretty much is about it for now. One thing I did forget to mention is that by having no vent to leak to the outside, there's also a reduction of the fluff that ends up in the little bird's nest outside. I think there's some studies about that, but we have to go into that in detail later. So thank you so much for bearing through this with me. I know this is my first long dragged out talk about appliances, and I will be crisscrossing regular tutorial videos about appliance and cooking and all that with these type of appliance talks. So let me know in the comment below if you have any topics you want me to cover, or if you have any questions or comments about my video. I know that there's a lot of data that I haven't really been clear about. I might even make a calculation video afterwards to showcase all of the factors that comes into play when we're doing these energy consumption calculations and all that kind of stuff. So thank you again for watching. Hopefully I have at least given you a bit more insight on how dryers work. Thank you so much. I'm Angelo, your steam oven guru. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.